Welcome to the PRiSM Podcast. We tell the stories that Hollywood won't. I am your host, Rodrigo Mariano, and across from me is Brendan Walker of 8mm and mSports magazine. Well, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I'm psyched to talk about all the movies I've seen in 2020, surprisingly, and all the movies I haven't been able to see as a result of just batshit circumstances.
Yeah, no, this year has been super odd when it comes to movies. I didn't really find myself watching any 2020 movies for like the first half of the year, like at all. It's insane.
Yeah.
But like, it's so weird how people have been formulating their lists because there's so many different avenues you can go through. Like, I personally have not seen Nomadland, The Father, or Minari, but I'm sure they would be on this list if I had seen them at this point. But here's also, this is the thing that I've been thinking about too, because they haven't been released in the United States, yet all of these publications have them on their 2020 list. That confuses me because I really do like it. It kind of, they're kind of on a pedestal because they have seen these movies, but they haven't been released like to accessible, like in an accessible way for any audience this year. And they come out in like February for Oscar eligibility. So it's, I don't know. I don't really have like, it's just odd.
The eligibility conversation is like really interesting regarding those because like, again, I'm the same way. I've been looking for like, I remember I put out a tweet like wondering to see where I could find Minari, and then a bunch of people said just look for online screenings because a lot they're like film organizations that are showing them and stuff. And I haven't been able to find them. It's been the same with Nomadland. I have not really. I completely forgot about The Father. That was really I almost completely forgot about it because it's been such a crazy year. Although even like the theater going experience, I've been in a movie theater like twice this year. I saw Tenet in a movie theater. Love to talk about Tenet because I don't know if that makes my list 100%, but I saw Tenet in a movie theater, and just last week I saw Promising Young Woman in a theater.
Good for you. Good for you. Is it on your list? We could talk about it.
It is on my list. Absolutely. Okay. Should we just jump right in or?
Yeah, we're gonna jump right in soon. But like, I really want to see Promising Young Woman. I really wanted to see it a few days ago, but I got a COVID scare in the family, so then we had to go test it, and then I couldn't go out to see Promising Young Woman. And that would have been the third movie I would have seen since the pandemic started.
What were the other two?
The other two were actually, is it three? No, it's two. I saw Trial of Chicago 7 and Tenet. I saw Trial of Chicago 7. Like, that was the first movie that I saw in the theater. Yeah. Thank you, Netflix, for actually releasing movies in theaters while other studios weren't, which is so weird and ironic because they're the killer of movie theaters, whatever.
And it's interesting because like, I mean, there are so many theaters specifically that like pre-pandemic weren't necessarily willing to show Netflix films for like an extended run. Like I remember when Roma was around, it was in theaters for like maybe like 2-3 weekends and I couldn't find it anywhere to see in person. Yeah, it was a whole thing. Yeah. Ugh.
But here we are, like seriously. Yeah. But to profess my list, I have not watched Mangrove, First Cow, Promising Young Woman, and One Night in Miami. Those are the only ones that were released theatrically in 2020 that I could not put on my list because I have not seen them. But I'm sure like they would be on this list if not for me not watching them. I don't know if you have any movies like that, but
so I mean, looking at my list in front of me, I do have I categories like movies that if I had seen, they probably would have been on this list, and the two are Minari and Nomadland. In regards when you were talking about Mangrove, it's interesting because when you're looking at the lists and you're looking at Mangrove and you're looking at Small X as a whole, it's interesting about whether or not you include Small X as a collective entry on the list or you look at them individually. I kind of put it down just collectively as Small X because they were also good. I couldn't really pick.
Yeah, because personally, this is just my opinion. I wouldn't do that because like I based it off the way that they screened them in like the New York Film Festival and just TIFF. Like they just screened them individually. So I perceive them in my head as their own movies. They were just all released within the same time span, but under the same franchise umbrella, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's like, that was just my perception of it. But let's get into this. I'm like super like excited just to talk about movies this year, even though it's been I wouldn't say it's been a dry year. It's just always fun to talk about.
It's been inaccessible. Yeah. There's been good stuff around this year. It's just been impossible to find if they aren't on streaming services.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. Okay. How about you start it off? Number 10.
So number 10, I would say, so I figured I'd just get this off my chest. 10 I couldn't really pick because I wanted to put Tenet on the list simply because it was just the biggest thing released this year. But then as a just as a film, I'm not even really that hot on it. I think it's mainly just on my list because it was the first thing I saw in a theater, and it was just good to be in a movie theater again. I think we've talked about Tenet before. I think we have our differences of opinion on it. I think like it is just on a level of ambition that I've just haven't seen a movie in forever. I think it's just not like, okay, here's my thing. I am one of the biggest Christopher Nolan fans around. I think you could ask pretty much anyone I know. It's just the problem is I think this film is Nolan is indulging so much in his ideas and just his style of filmmaking and everything. And he goes so into it that it doesn't really like all click. But then when it clicks, it really clicks.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of sentiments with Tenet in general. I think it's a super ambitious film. It's literally right outside of my top 10.
Yeah.
I really like watching it and I really enjoy myself watching it. But it's just Christopher Nolan just like sucking his own dick, really.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
it's fun to see. Yeah, it's just like, dude, like it's just it doesn't really stick the landing on it. And in my opinion, personally.
Yeah. It's like the most self-indulgent thing I think he's made since Interstellar. And Interstellar works. And you know what? I think, okay, I'm thinking about this. There are two scenes specifically, and like why I think it just makes my top 10. Number one, it's so big, and number two, the reverse hallway fight scene was probably my favorite scene of the year.
How do you direct
I just don't even think it's close. Yeah, it's insane.
I am a huge Christopher Nolan fan. It just like this movie lacks like the characters that he usually has in his movies, even though he does get slack for having like two-dimensional characters in his other movies. I just feel like this lacks even like the Murph and Coop relationship, or just a standout performance like Leonardo DiCaprio in Inception, or just ideologies that we haven't seen before. Well, obviously, Tenet feels super fresh and stuff. Like, it just doesn't feel the level of Nolan that I feel he's set for himself. Yeah. Well, my number 10 is also like a movie that I just straight up love for entertainment purposes. No real massive depth to it. Freaky. I fucking love Freaky. Freaky's so good in my opinion. And Vince Vaughn is absolutely incredible. I think he should be considered for like best actor in a musical or comedy, because I don't know, Christopher Landon just does something when he flips genres. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen Freaky. I remember seeing the trailer and being just absolutely engrossed by it. Just Vince Vaughn is such a weird screen presence consistently, because like the Vince Vaughn that I think you probably remember, like we probably remember from like 10 or 11, or like, you know, the buddy comedies you see with Owen Wilson. And in like the past 4 or 5 years, he's just done all this super interesting stuff with the projects he's choosing. Like Freaky, like what's it? Oh God. North Hollywood, which he's in. I don't know if you've seen.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so it's this not to like go on a tangent or anything, but it's this interesting skateboarding movie made by one of the producers of mid-90s and the guys who run Illegal Civ, the like film and skateboarding collective. And he's just and Vince Vaughn's in it. And the whole thing is he's just taken this really weird route with the roles he's picking compared to like, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And it's super awesome to see. And I didn't get a chance to see Freaky, but it looked incredible.
Yeah, no, his performance is definitely the highlight of Freaky. And Christopher Landon's just a filmmaker that I've been looking at for a while now with Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2. They're just so campy and self-aware, and Freaky is just the best of the bunch because he knows how to flip genre. He knows how to revitalize it for a modern audiences and make it accessible to us. Like, I'm not huge on like old slasher movies, not old, but like 80s slasher movies, but Freaky just does something for me. Everything just clicks and it plays like a classic. Like, it's engrossing and scary and super, super hilarious. And the characters are great. Vince Vaughn's great. I'm just in love with this movie. And it probably wouldn't be on this list if it were not for me not watching Mangrove and Promising Young Woman, One Night in Miami. But I just wanted to put it in here because it deserves to be talked about. So go ahead with your number 9.
I'd say, so my number 9, I feel like it's a bit of an obvious inclusion just because, you know, just given the stuff that has come out this year, it would be Borat's subsequent movie film starring, you know, Dear Lad, Sacha Baron Cohen. I did not have any expectation for it going in, simply because the first Borat, as you know, goofy as it is just a really interesting piece of filmmaking, weirdly. But I think that it came out at the perfect time, obviously, because you know it's centered around the election and everything, and it doesn't necessarily hit the same highs as the first one. But I think that the like direction it takes politically is just something that I hadn't really seen in movies in probably like 2-3
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, Sasha is incredible in that film. And what's her name? Maria Bakalova?
Yeah, I think
She
something like that. Yeah.
is the biggest surprise for like this whole entire year. No one saw that performance coming from anywhere. And the Rudy Giuliani scene absolutely floored me.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't believe the shit that they tried to pull off in this film. And it's so weird because like they make Borat and Borat 2, and it's like a full cohesive story. But in it is
Yeah.
so many like it's a different kind of filmmaking for sure. And one that we will probably not try to achieve during our time as filmmakers or any of us that we know really. It's just an ambitious feat that is pulled off effortlessly. I don't know how they do it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the level of like, I don't know if you call it like, I wouldn't say like stunt filmmaking or whatever, but just the audacity to just go into crowds like this or just find regular people and just put them in these situations. Like, I don't think there are that many people working in Hollywood today that, number one, have the audacity to do that, like Sacha Baron Cohen.
Exactly.
And number two, I just can't imagine like something like this getting any like traditional studio backing at all. Just the amount of like legal challenge that comes with something like making something like this. Like if you go and read about like the ridiculous amount of lawsuits and legal challenges that have just come with like Sacha Baron Cohen from like the original Borat, and then when he was on the Ali G show, and then even just his other stuff, it's insane.
Like there's that one scene in Borat's subsequent movie film where he's in the cabin, the COVID cabin. And the thing is, I talked to a lot of people, well, some of my friends, and they were like, those had to be actors. But the thing is, they weren't. Sacha Baron Cohen was literally in a cabin with two randos and created this narrative psychologically in them so that they could move the plot forward.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you convince people to just like be faux actors in your movie like in such a instrumental narrative way? It's ridiculous, dude.
I'd say the other thing I just want to add before we move on is no one saw this movie coming either. I remember like the first mention of there even being a Borat 2 was, I think it was in July during the scene where he goes on stage and he starts singing about the ridiculously offensive song. That was the first mention that Sacha Baron Cohen was even working on a project at that point. And he managed to keep it under wraps this entire time, which I thought was insane. Just the level of secrecy that came with making a film this absurd was just incredible.
Props to Sacha Baron Cohen. He's had a good year too. And
yeah,
I don't know if Trials of Chicago 7's on your list, but it's on mine.
I haven't seen it actually.
Interesting.
I still need to. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that later then.
Right.
Well, my number 9 is a classic movie that I did see in February in a movie theater. Probably one of the last movies that I saw in the theater, but The Invisible Man. This was also one of the biggest surprises of the year for me because I didn't really... Lee Winnell is hit or miss for me. He did like some of the Insidious movies, but Upgrade was really, really fantastic. And he knows how to move the camera. He has a great eye, and he's just a really talented director. And this movie proves that 100%. Like everything just clicks in this movie. The performances, even like down to the production design. It's terrifying in the way that they use the Invisible Man IP and repurpose it to today's like era, and the Me Too movement is so interesting and provides such a contrast to the dark universe thing that Universal tried to do with The Mummy. So I really love this movie.
I think the two things that I really took away from this movie, number one, Elizabeth Moss has to be one of the greatest performers working today. I have not seen Handmaid's Tale all the way through, and I'm a huge Mad Men fan, so those are the two things I really know her from. I'd never really seen her in anything besides this, and just the range with first off, the premise itself is like just it's bonkers. It's bonkers. And just to see her craft this incredible performance with so much depth around a premise this bonkers was just awesome. Also, the behind the scenes footage that you see from that scene, the kitchen scene when her husband first like reappears, is just incredible. Like the amount of like incredible effects work that went in for this movie. Like I don't really, when I see Jason Blum's name attached to a movie, my expectations aren't particularly high. Like, I mean, again, so he produced the Invisible Man, but we also got, Blumhouse's Fantasy Island this year. Like I never really know what to expect when I see a Blumhouse's name attached to something, but typically you get interesting stuff like this for like 1 out of every 3.
Yeah. I feel like Jason Blum knows how to prioritize and knows what to prioritize. He knows what makes money too. And that's why he's one of the most, I would say, well-regarded producers in the industry, just because he just makes the bank. Like, even not The Invisible Man, but Freaky too. He just, dude, this man can take as many risks as he wants because these budgets are just so small. And it's actually incredible to see what they do with like a budget under 10 million, both of these movies. So props to like Jason Blum in general. Do you know he also produced Whiplash?
Yes, I did. Funny. Yeah, that's crazy. I think he's produced a lot of really well-regarded. I think
and like Black Klansman, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think the whole thing is from what it seems like to me is he uses like these more like I wouldn't say schlocky because The Invisible Man is anything but schlocky, but stuff like Fantasy Island again cannot. It's just all coming back to me now. That is the last movie I saw in a movie theater prior to the pandemic was Blumhouse Fantasy Island.
No.
But I know, just horrible. But my notion is I think he kind of uses these films to make the bank and then kind of produce what he really wants to, the stuff like Whiplash, the stuff like Black Klansman. So yeah.
Good for him, man. Good for him. The last movie that I saw in the theater was The Way Back. That was my last one.
Oh, okay. No, solid.
So your number 8?
So my number 8, kind of sticking with the notion of like Me Too type focused films. So I know a lot of people have seen The Assistant this year. I haven't. I've heard really good things about it though. My number 8 is actually a pretty recent inclusion, which is Promising Young Woman, which is Emerald Fennell's, her film debut, and it was also produced by Margot Robbie. And I will just say, I haven't seen anything that has like grabbed me by the throat like this heavily in terms of like regarding talking about the subject and everything. It's like the script itself is just one of the like, it deals with it's an incredible PSA about dating culture, like modern dating culture and just modern like hookup culture as well. And just the dangers that come with that. But also I just haven't read a script that manages to be this impactful, but also just so funny in such a dark way. And Carey Mulligan, who I'm not typically a fan of from what I've seen her in, she's really good in Wildlife, which was directed by Paul Dano a couple years ago. She is a powerhouse in this movie. Also, this is the first thing I've seen Bo Burnham in a really long time, and he's great. Like he's playing kind of, he plays with type with his performance. He's definitely not the focus of the movie. Obviously, it's Carey Mulligan, but it's just such a weird combination of a script that is just super punchy, a director that really knows what she's doing. Emerald Fennell is next up. I cannot wait to see what she makes next. And also something just this funny, talking about such a complex subject matter.
Oh, dude, I want to see this movie so bad. I keep on hearing such great things about this movie, and you just pumped my anticipation up like 10 levels.
Yeah.
I can't wait. So my number 8 is The Five Bloods, Spike Lee's Vietnam epic. It just feels so grand, and I just kind of want to take a moment to rest in peace Chadwick Boseman, dude. Yeah. He's absolutely incredible with like the time that he has in this movie, and it's crazy because I held off on seeing this movie when it first came out, and then Chadwick Boseman died, and then I held off again because I wasn't ready to see his final performance. So just one day, like a week ago, I decided to watch The Five Bloods and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom back to back. And dude, like he's just a powerhouse of an actor, and this shit was just scratching the surface too.
Yeah.
Like he had so much to
give,
dude. Yeah.
Jeez.
Such an incredible performer. For real.
I know for me, I actually have The Five Bloods as my number 1 of the year. I was
really,
so my whole thing with Spike Lee is since the 90s, he just hasn't had 2 films. I don't think he can make 2, like knock it out of the parks back to back. It just hasn't really happened. Like you get something, like you got Game, but then you also get you get something like the Old Boy remake. Like you never really know what you're getting with Spike Lee, but this is like the first time in a really long time, where I've just seen 2 Spike Lee movies like just that he's made back to back that just hit like this. And also in addition to Chadwick Boseman, Delroy Lindo would be my pick
Incredible.
for performance of the year. I thought that earlier in the year he'd be a much bigger presence in the conversation for Best Actor at this year's Oscars. I think that might have been a consequence of it coming out in like June. I still think it deserves a much bigger space in the awards conversation than I'm seeing it get currently. And Lindo's a guy I'd seen him in supporting roles in other
exactly.
Spike Lee projects, and he just shows up and kills it here, just out of the park. And then also, I forget the he brings back some of the Black Klansman cast. I forget the name of like one of the white supremacist guys. I forget Paul Walter Hauser, who is in this movie for like 20 minutes and also just kills it. Oh my God.
The whole cast in this movie is pretty incredible, and Spike Lee directs with such style and just like, I don't know, it feels so epic, even though it's just a movie about people walking in a jungle. It really feels like a war movie, and it has that scale psychologically. I just don't know how he pulls it off. It's incredible.
I know the other other big takeaways from this movie is I really liked the way he would intercut documentary footage, or like actual, like the way he would cut like documentary type B-roll whenever he was talking about something significant to Black history. I forget the scene where Jonathan Majors' character is like on top of a landmine, and Delroy Lindo, who plays his father, is like screaming at him like, think like the sprinter, like this Olympic sprinter that went to Morehouse College.
Yeah. And
it intercuts with like footage of him like sprinting, and then you see him like sprint away from the landmine and just make it out just barely. Also, Jonathan Majors Jonathan Majors has just had such a killer 2 years. Like, again, I shouldn't be spending so much time talking about like image of performance. This is like, best movies of the year after all. But like, he kills it in this. He killed it in Last Black Man in San Francisco. And oh my God, he's just such a mountain of talent.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does next. He's definitely like one to watch and a big star.
Yeah.
And will be a big star going forward.
I know his next project, not to continue tangenting, but he's working on a Western with Lakeith Stanfield for Netflix.
No way.
Yeah.
That's dope.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Well, what's your wait, are we on number 8?
Number 8, or? Yeah. So The Five Bloods was I had as my best movie of the year. I had number 8 was a film called Another Round, starring Mads Mikkelsen.
I saw that movie.
I think one of the most surprising things I've seen out of the year. I have a friend who's much more into foreign film than I am, and he's a really big Mads Mikkelsen fan. And he told me to check out this movie about a month ago, and I finally did like 2 weeks ago. And I genuinely, so Mads Mikkelsen, I only really knew from his part in Rogue One and on Hannibal. I just hadn't really seen him in that much stuff. Also, he's great in Casino Royale. Like, in terms of like the American films he's in, he's typically playing villains, but in this he's playing the whole premise. I don't know how you really explain this movie. So Mads Mikkelsen plays a school teacher, and him and his friends are all just sitting around drinking. And there's I forget the name of the European philosopher. Basically, and they start discussing that there's this philosopher that was basically like, oh yeah, you become like more creative and more productive with like a 0.5 blood alcohol level. So the whole movie is basically about him and his friends drinking at work for the sake of a social experiment, and it just gets so crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, I really, really do love this movie. It's not on my list. It's like right outside of my top 10.
Yeah.
But Mads Mikkelsen's performance is bonkers. Everything in this movie is just so elevated and over the top. I love seeing just this cast just stumble around drunk all the time. And like, oh my God, the final 5 minutes of this movie where the sequence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so absolutely crazy.
That dancing scene, man. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's like Euphoria, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was also one of the big surprises of the year for me. And it's just odd because Mads Mikkelsen has never been nominated for an Oscar.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
After watching this movie, I went on his IMDb and I was just like, why wasn't he nominated? Not even for like a Golden Globe or anything. No SAG, no anything. Yeah, he is regarded as one of the best actors like
of our time. Yeah.
Yeah. So props to him, really. I feel like at one point he should like venture out and just try to go for the Oscar. He hasn't been really doing that. He probably gives no shit about awards.
Oh, absolutely.
But like he should definitely like, I don't know, because if he just even tried to pursue that, it would be game over for everyone.
Yeah.
Like we all know this.
So what do you have as your number 7?
My number 7 is The Trial of the Chicago 7. So yeah, we talked about this before, but this was my first movie that I saw in theaters after the whole entire like pandemic, or it's still during the pandemic. But when I walked into the theater, I shed a tear because I was finally back. But besides that, the movie was absolutely incredible. And Aaron Sorkin's screenplay is 100%, in my opinion, the best of the year. Just so snappy and like informative. This trial is absolutely infuriating.
Yeah.
But it plays so much like a crowd pleaser. And the whole cast is just amazing. You got Sacha Baron Cohen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Eddie Redmayne, like
with the American
Michael
accent.
Keaton. Yeah, with the American accent. And he pulls it off too. Jeremy Strong, like.
Jeez. So I have not seen The Trial of Chicago 7. It's been on my list. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I remember seeing that trailer. I think that first trailer came out in September. And like Eddie Redmayne's American accent is kind of full. Like I was thoroughly surprised. It's flawless.
Yeah. No, he's really great in the movie. The whole cast is great. I could even see like all of them. Like the whole entire Best Supporting Actor category at the Oscars being just actors from The Trial of Chicago 7. But I do have some gripes with the movie. It is like the best screenplay of the year, but Sorkin isn't 100% there when it comes to directing yet.
Yeah.
But it is far better direction than Molly's Game, that's for sure.
Oh, really? I'm actually a huge fan of Molly's Game.
Really?
Oh, I love Molly's Game. It kind of feels like Molly's Game kind of feels like a more crime-focused Big Short to me, and that's why I think I like it so much. And I know his directing isn't like all the way there, but just oh god, I love that movie so much.
He's going to get there eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And there are signs of that in this movie, but he's not 100% there yet.
Yeah.
But the screenplay is bonkers. And I'm just been a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin forever. West Wing, like The Social Network. This guy just knocks it out of the park every time when he writes shit. And I really, really love Steve Jobs as well. I don't know your opinion on that movie, but Aaron Sorkin's a beast. That's it.
I think we've had this conversation before. Again, not to keep getting off topic, but I think Steve Jobs is maybe the best thing that Aaron Sorkin's ever written. I'm in love with that movie, just completely. Yeah,
just the fusion of Danny Boyle's like direction and Aaron Sorkin's screenplay in the structure. Oh my god.
Oh god, yeah.
I need to watch that movie again. It's just such a vibe, and Daniel Pemberton's score in that movie is A1.
I think weirdly, like this year, like just as you're sitting at home, you're stuck at home, you're just looking for stuff to watch. I think I watched Steve Jobs at least 3 times just to like really study that screenplay and just understand how it functioned. Also, just because Fassbender and Sorkin is just a pairing I would have never really thought of, and it works
that is so
just
true.
Flawlessly. Like Jesus, yeah.
Not to get off topic, but Fassbender needs to get like a new agent or something.
Oh god, yeah, that's I think what's the last thing I saw him when wasn't X-Men Apocalypse. It was this lovely film called The Snowman based on I think like a Swedish mystery novel. Might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. Lovely post plastic surgery Val Kilmer appearance as well. Oh god.
Oh my
Jesus.
god.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his IMDb right now.
Yeah,
it's so awful. Dude, he's like one of the best actors working, like in general.
The thing with Fassbender, I've always seen it, is like it's weird because okay, so I think like 2010 to like 2016, he had maybe like one of the best runs as an actor ever. With no Oscar to show for it. But then even like before that, he's just like prior to like his whole big run and everything. Well, actually, you know what he needs to do is he needs to work with Steve McQueen again. That's how he can get everything back on track. Oh my god! I rewatched Hunger a couple weeks ago, which is I think maybe I don't know if it's the best performance of his career, but just he needs a new agent. That's the word. That's the word. You heard it here first. Yeah.
Alien Covenant, The Snowman, Dark Phoenix, Kung Fury 2. No diss to Kung Fury 2, but like, dude, like, who's your agent? What's going on here? It's just so like all over the place.
Eclectic, yeah. That's the only word. Oh my god.
Oh, he's working with Taika on his next movie.
Oh.
I'm gonna get him back on track. So first movie in 5 years that's actually worth like.
Yeah. I think he's also taken up like he's like I think he's like taken up like Formula 1 racing or something. Like I know he's like doing like race car stuff. I don't know. Jesus. So just moving on. Moving on from just a lovely little departure from the conversation. My number 7 of the year was a film that you said you hadn't seen. It was First Cow, just because. So I'd never really been familiar with Kelly Rickdart's style and Kelly Rickdart's filmography until my friend Mitch, shout out Mitch, really got me into Rickdart when he just mentioned First Cow to me. And I haven't seen something just I haven't seen anything aside from like Portrait, which I saw this year, which we're not counting as a 2020 movie. I haven't seen something so like just lovely and intimate in such a really long time.
Interesting.
Kelly Rickdart's a filmmaker that I think deserves way more shine than she actually has. She's just been quietly working in independent film for the past 20 or 30 years. And more specifically, John Magaro, I think that's how you say his name. He's a guy that I remember as like he was in The Big Short. He's been in a lot of like random TV. I thought he just seemed kind of throwaway. And then the way that Rickdart uses him in this and just the way that the script utilizes him is just something I wasn't expecting at all. And I don't think he'll get much shine for Best Actor, but it's a really sneaky, it's a very sneaky and subtle, but just really good performance.
I really want to see First Cow, and I keep on hearing great things about that movie. I'll probably put it on sometime this week, but from what I've heard, it's great. What's it even about? Is that a spoiler?
Okay, so I don't know how to. So kind of how I explain this is John Magaro plays this guy who wants to be a baker, and he's sort of like living in rural Oregon. I think it's like the 1800s at the time, and he has this dream of opening a bakery. And basically, so he knows how to bake, but he doesn't have any dairy because at this time, like this is as Oregon's like first getting settled, there just isn't that much there isn't that much around. But there's one cow in the area. There's one cow owned by this really rich dude. So him and this guy he meet basically start like trying to like steal the milk pretty much. Like they start like lifting milk from this cow essentially in order to make biscuits. And then it becomes this whole like just really it's a movie, like it's a type of movie that it's just I'm sorry. I don't really have words to describe it. It's just really lovely. Like I haven't seen anything that like quiet and lovely like all year. Like I think like most of the movies in my top 10 are like they all have something to say. And First Cow definitely has something to say, but it's just quiet. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So are we at number 6 now?
Yes.
Okay. So my number 6 is Cooper Raif's Shithouse. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. That is a hell of a name, though.
Yeah. So Cooper Raif's Shithouse is just about this kid who goes to college. He has one night with this chick, and shit goes sideways after that. But I don't know. When I watched this movie, I had a pretty deep personal connection to it, not only because it's relatable from a college student standpoint, but this dude, Cooper Raif, was like 22 when he directed this movie, straight out of college. And not only could I see myself in the characters, I saw myself from the filmmaking perspective. And that inspired me hella. I kept on reading like interviews. I rewatched the movie again, and I'm just thoroughly inspired by this work ethic and everything. So he makes this movie straight out of college, submits it to South by. It wins the grand jury prize.
Oh, dude.
That's the craziest thing. Like, yeah. It's so inspiring, this whole entire journey. But not only is the journey inspiring, just the movie really nails the vulnerability of college students, the freshman experience, and the screenplay is just so tight. And like you said about First Cow, I haven't seen First Cow, but like it feels so lovable, and you just want to hug it. And it's just an inspiring movie from all perspectives and all contexts, really. I think you should really see it. It's just pretty simple coming of age movie, like micro budget as fuck, probably less than 20,000.
Oh, I love it. I dig.
But I don't know. Like, this is something that I see myself making if I was like a filmmaker at that stage. And it's just like interesting to see what people make at that point. Yeah. I also watched like, have you seen Banana Split? That's another coming of age movie where I was like inspired by the filmmaking just based on like the context, because the writer Hannah Marks is starring and like writing it at like the same age of like 22. Geez. I'm like, wow, dude, I want to make something at 22. I want to make something as authentic and grounded and relatable at that age. And I don't know. It's just incredible in that sense. And Cooper Raiff really like nails it. He directs, produces, stars in it, wrote it. Like, dude, what a grind. What a grind.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just all works. I do have some gripes with like the epilogue at the end because it kind of like it's sappy and corny. But that's beside the point. Like the rest of the movie is pretty incredible. I really do adore this movie.
I'm 1000% going to see it now. That sounds lovely. I will say, so my what number are we on now? I think it's 6. I think we're on 5. We're on 6. Okay.
Are you on 6?
Yes. I think I'm on 6. Yeah. Okay. So I think my number 6 I had what did I have? Oh yeah, so number 6 I had Small Axe because I couldn't pick which one if I had to pick one from Small Axe. I know I don't know if this is a hotter take just because I know it didn't get as much love from critics compared to the other ones, but Red, White, and Blue I think was my favorite of them all.
Okay, I'll add that to the watch list because that's not even on my watch list.
It's definitely first off, John Boyega, I'm so glad that post Star Wars, he's just actually getting to take roles that are more authentic to him. Like if you've heard everything that he's talked about, like his gripes with Disney and everything.
Yeah.
His just whole social voice and his whole just social presence is just incredible. And so I don't know, are you familiar with the premise at all?
No, it has to do with police, right?
Yeah. So basically, John Boyega plays the son of Caribbean immigrants in the UK, and I think it's the 1980s. And the whole thing is so he basically his dad is attacked by police, and so he sort of ends up getting this notion that he wants to go change things from the inside and becomes a police officer. And it turns into this really complex commentary on like the police presence in Britain, just because I feel like whenever we talk about like police presence in film and police brutality as a topic, we generally think about it in the context of American politics, the American public consciousness. It's very rare that you really hear it talked about in Britain. And it's interesting because you can kind of tell it's going to go sideways like really fast in the way that, just socially. But Boyega delivers maybe the best performance of his career. And it's so raw to his own experience. It's so raw to his own experience, the character's own experience as a black man, sort of grappling with the fact that once he becomes a police officer, his own community isn't necessarily looking at it the same way, and he ends up resenting his own profession as a result.
Wow.
And yeah, it's definitely a bit grittier than Mangrove and Lover's Rock, obviously, but I think it's maybe it has the most important story to tell of the Small Axe anthology.
Yeah, Stephen McQueen really outdid himself just in general taking on this project because obviously it's so vast and like grand. And I've really been missing Steve McQueen since like Widows. Yeah.
Oh God, Widows. I think that's how one of the first reasons we started talking to each other is just a mutual appreciation for a movie that did not get nearly enough love the year it came out. Widows is absolutely killer if you haven't seen it. Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And the cinematography in that movie is just like, who does the cinematography for like Steve McQueen's movies? I know he.
I gotta check this.
Is it
Sean Bobbitt, who's worked with McQueen his entire career? There is a single scene in Widows. It's like I think you remember. God. It's the car scene. It's the one where you see Colin Farrell driving from the campaign meeting back to his house, and he's in the same district, and you sort of see like the dichotomy of the different like economic sides of Chicago, and he's having this incredibly insensitive conversation with his wife about his competitor in the election. Oh my God, it's just Steve McQueen. Like when Steve McQueen is firing on all cylinders, he's actually like given space to create. He's so hard, and he shows that in Red, White. Because also, the reason why I think I like Red, White, and Blue so much is it takes a lot of the same themes that he kind of examined in Widows and just looks at it from a slightly different, like more law enforcement focused perspective.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lover's Rock is right outside of my top 10. It didn't exactly reach my top 10, but Steve McQueen is just so talented, and Lover's Rock is so intimate and also feels just lovely.
Yeah. And
I'm just glad that he took this on.
Yeah, I was going to say, watch Mangrove when you get the chance, just because Letitia Wright is just absolutely killer. I think it's just really awesome to see Steve McQueen get like, so because it's an amalgamation of like probably Britain's like best young acting talent in a way that I just haven't really seen in the past few years. And the fact that Steve McQueen actually managed to get, I think it was because it's Amazon's distributing it, but he did it through the BBC, if I'm correct. And the fact that he even got the BBC to basically bite, and he was just like, I want to make like 4 or 5 movies that are all like 2 hours long, screen them at a film festival, and then distribute them like they're a TV series. It's distribution like I haven't really seen before, and it's also just like format I haven't really ever seen before from a filmmaker in a really long time.
And creative freedom for like a Black artist, that's incredible.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
seeing what artists could do like with that freedom is so great to see.
Yeah.
So my number 5, Eliza Hittman's Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always was one that really hit for me. A personal story about a girl in Pennsylvania having to go out of the way to get an abortion in New York City. Obviously, super sensitive subject when it comes to this movie. And Eliza Hittman just hits it with such intimacy and care. And what I really, really respect about this movie is its use of silence and lack of dialogue. Have you seen this movie?
I haven't. This is another movie that I haven't really. Is it on streaming?
I think it's on HBO Max, but yeah, it's just
I'm gonna have to keep that. Yeah.
The performances are so like subtle and subdued, and it just approaches the subject of abortion so carefully. It's not preachy. It's just raw, and this is what happens, and that's the most tragic thing. This could be anyone. This could be anyone taking this journey because they don't have the resources, like, at their disposal. And it's super empathetic, and I don't know. It's not telling anyone what to think. It just is. And that's the most tragic part about it, really.
Yeah, I remember seeing this movie get a bunch of, I think it was, did it screen at Sundance first? It might have screened at Sundance. Yeah, I remember seeing this because it was one of the, I think it was like one of the last movies that was in theaters in 2020. Or it didn't quite make it a theatrical release. I don't remember. I remember seeing a bunch of press about this movie in early March and really wanted to see it, and then it kind of like falling through the cracks for me just because of everything that was going on. But after everything you've just said, I'm probably gonna go watch it tonight. Like,
yeah, it's incredible. Like, the direction is absolutely a sight to behold, really. So where are we right now? You're number 5?
Yeah, I think I'm at number 5. I had so I have Palm Springs at number 5, which is just, oh my god,
That's my number 1.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. It was really tough. This next like 5 were really tough for me. But it is genuinely one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I remember, I think my roommate put it best when he just kind of described it. It's basically horny Groundhog Day in the best way possible. And I don't know how to put this in the words. It's so inventive because it takes the whole like same day over and over again premise and just does so much interesting stuff with it. And Kristen Milioti specifically is a person I've loved since I've seen her in How I Met Your Mother, and I think she was in the film version or the Broadway version of, I think it was Once, not Rent. I think it was Once, and she's just absolutely killer. And I haven't really gotten to see her in anything in probably like 4 or 5 years, and she comes back with this, and it's again maybe one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Like, literally, this movie plays like a classic, and I don't use that loosely. And it's so came out at the right time. It's probably the most relevant movie for the widest audience because they're living the same day over and over again while we're living the same day over and over again, not knowing what to do with ourselves and not knowing how to get out of it. And it's just so interesting. You said about flipping the trope, but also what they do with the characters within that trope, like specifically the J.K. Simmons character.
Oh my God.
I love what they do with him.
The murder scenes are just incredible.
Oh my God. It's so inventive and funny. And we thought we played out this trope by now. We thought we've done everything we could with the Groundhog Day like idea, but there's the way that the screenplay is just so inventive, and Andy Samberg just low-key has really good taste in projects.
Yeah,
like, that's so understated. I feel like pop star. He produced Brigsby Bear. I fucking love Brigsby Bear.
I didn't know because that's that whole production was super SNL heavy. I never knew he produced that. Jeez.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like, they low-key know how to pick projects, and it's incredible. Like, I love Palm Springs so much just because how relevant it is and how just fucking funny and bonkers it gets with the premise. And just the fact that it takes place the one day that they relive over and over is like someone else's wedding, and how they play on that is great too.
Jeez. I know.
Oh my God. And like the revelations that they reveal to each other throughout the movie. Oh my God. I need to watch it again.
The couple things, I think I had a couple takeaways from this movie. Number one, very like significant movie in the history, like in the context of festivals, because I think it's the biggest Sundance acquisition ever. I think Hulu and because I think it's Neon produced, and then Hulu acquired exclusive distribution rights for almost, I think it was like $25 million, which is like unheard of for like something that I think had I don't know if it because South by got canceled this year. I forgot about that because I think it was going to get screened at South by. But that was going to be its first wide screening, but it's screened at Sundance. Hulu come in with again $25 million for a festival film is just unheard of. And I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, this has to be something if like streaming services are willing to get into that big of a bidding war. I think the other thing I think I really took away from this movie is Andy Samberg's also just a much more dynamic actor. That, like, I mean, he's dynamic in terms of the comedy he does, but like just as an actor, wow. Like I want to see him do some more. I want to see him do more stuff like this and maybe stuff that's a little bit more dramatic. I think I have this theory with comedians, and I think the reason why comedians transfer so well to dramatic acting is because since comedy is all about timing, I think that ability to just time the right beat, the right emotion, just transfers so well to more dramatic acting. And I think if, he worked with like, I don't know, just thinking on the top of my head, like I'd want to see like Andy Samberg and like Steven Soderbergh work together. I think that'd be killer.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I never thought about Andy Samberg in that context before.
Yeah.
He could do absolutely like insane stuff.
Yeah.
With like the right people.
Yeah.
But I also just can't wait to see like more projects like this in general that feel like this, are this tone, like Brigsby Bear and this, like they could create so much great stuff, like the Lonely Island team, and like I don't know. I absolutely adore this movie so much, dude.
Yeah.
So was that your number 4?
I think that was my number 4. Yeah.
Okay. So my number 4 is The Sound of Metal.
Absolutely. I almost completely forgot about that one. Oh my God. That sound design.
Oh yeah. So this is Darius Martyr's feature debut film, and it fires on all cylinders, really. The sound design, like you mentioned, like, did you watch it with headphones?
I did. It's the only way to watch it. Oh my
God. Yeah. And it's probably better than a movie theater, really, because you actually feel like the depth of being a deaf person and having that disability with the sound design is off the charts, and probably like the best sound design that I've heard like this past decade, really. But really, like how they portray the deaf community and how they tell the story, and Riz Ahmed's performance is worth the price of admission, even though we couldn't even see this with the price of admission, like regardless.
Oh my God.
Incredible performances all around, like incredible story, super intimate, and takes its time with the subject in a way that is empathetic and like personable. Paul Raci, the supporting actor, the one in the deaf community, absolutely like heartbreaking in this scene too. In this movie too, like it's so crazy giving like these deaf actors the opportunity to act in features like these and just absolutely kill it.
It's just something that like just not like to make it seem like super ableist or anything, but just like the fact that a lot of the times you see these movies get cast and directors are just too hesitant to actually cast deaf actors because they think like, oh, it's going to be like a pain in the ass, when it really isn't. But the way that what this does for the deaf community, as well as just like the sound design, if you've never really like ever read about hearing loss or anything like that, the way that experience comes in when you're watching headphones is unlike anything I think I've ever experienced watching anything. Also, Riz Ahmed has just been quietly one of my favorite actors of the past 10 years, just because of all the projects he's done. And this just continues in the trend of him doing like really just weird and interesting stuff. I think the last thing I remember seeing him in, sadly, is Venom. So it was nice to see him just return to doing like smaller, much more interesting stuff. I mean, not to say Venom isn't interesting, it's just interesting in a different way.
Yeah, like 4 Lines is killer.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most interesting actors for sure. And he was in like, wasn't he Jason Bourne?
He was in jail, yeah, because the whole thing is so like the thing with PRiSM, he's been in so many interesting small independent things, but every single time he's done big things, like he was in Rogue One, he's pretty good in Rogue One. He's in Rogue One for like 20, 30 minutes. He's in Jason Bourne for like, then again, he's like, you got to remember
Jason Bourne is also a strange movie.
Yeah, you got to remember is that every other actor, it's not Matt Damon carrying that movie. It's every other actor that actually gets dialogue. I think I read somewhere that Matt Damon has like 23 lines in that entire movie.
Jesus.
And the whole thing is like whenever you see anyone that isn't like Matt Damon on screen, they're the only ones talking, and you can kind of see like the weaknesses in that movie's writing, even though Greengrass wrote it. And it's just his smaller stuff is excellent. It's just every single time he's leapt to bigger budget, like franchise filmmaking, it hasn't always like hit per se, but he's really good in Rogue One for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what are we on to now? You're number 4.
Yeah,
right?
So
is that where we are?
I think it's my number 4, number 3. I forget about it. I had Mank as my next movie.
Interesting.
So the whole thing is I was actually, I think probably about a month ago when I first watched it, I didn't even have it in my top 10. I've since rewatched it. This movie just I have a weird connection with this movie just because I took a stage design class in high school. And I remember when looking at scene and everything, my teacher made us watch Citizen Kane. I think it was like over the course of a year, probably 2 to 3 times over like week long worth of class periods. So when I first watched this movie, I didn't know if I was I was worried that I wouldn't be able to stand it just because I have this just annoyance linked with Citizen Kane, even though, you know, it's still one of the greatest movies of all time. It's just not really that fun when you've watched it like 3 times in 2 months, considering it's like almost 3 hours long. But Fincher, this comes from a script that Fincher's father wrote, if I'm correct, before he died. So this is a passion project of Fincher's. And you can tell he has so much emotional investment in telling the story. And the whole, everything that happens with Herman J. Mankiewicz is just really conducive to Fincher's own career and the way that he's sort of fought studios over the years and how he's kind of always stuck up for like the artist's voice above all else. And I think the movie has a lot of really good commentary on like the current studio system in connection to the stuff that Mank went through in terms of like trying to even get credit for, the movie that he wrote that he didn't get the credit for almost 50, 60 years. And yeah, also Amanda Seyfried, I think is going to be a really big favorite for the best actress category. I don't know about Oldman. Gary Oldman's just confuses me. But I think I meant just because of some of the personal stuff, but Amanda Seyfried, I think, is going to be one of the favorites for best actress because of this movie.
Yeah. I feel like everyone who's watched Mank agrees on the fact that it is a technically impressive and very personal movie for David Fincher. And it's such a departure from what he's done beforehand. Like Gone Girl gets under your skin. It's horrifying and such a blockbuster, but this is so small. It feels big as well, but it's so different from literally everything he's done. And it's interesting that you say his perspective as a person who's always fought studios, because I've never really, and maybe I'm a fool to not think that, but I've never really saw it from that perspective. But he really nails it in that aspect of just like doing a commentary on the studio system and making the films that he wants to make, because that's what Mank was trying to do, trying to get like be that person.
I think I might have misphrased. So it's not necessarily that he's fought studios, but just like the idea that he, above all else throughout his career, he's one of like, I think he's maybe like one of the last remaining like big budget auteurs, like guys that could like go get like $80 million from a studio to make something that they want to make completely within their vision. And I think that what Mank does is it kind of like, it romanticizes that aspect of the idea that like the creatives should have more say in studios. And obviously, like, you know, you always like, we're thinking about this as people that both want to go into the film industry, and we have like, I want to go into the film industry as more of a numbers guy. Like the reason why oftentimes you see poor like movies made from studios is mainly because the studio filmmaker relationship breaks down, because the studio's, you know, interested in the bottom line and the filmmaker is interested in, you know, actually seeing their vision come to fruition. And I think what Mank does is kind of like, it just brings a really interesting take on that whole studio creative relationship. Also, just a really subtle detail I really love from the movie is I remember in Fight Club, Fincher talks about when Tyler Durden works as like a film projectionist. He talks about the idea of cigarette burns. And the whole thing is this film is shot completely in a black and white film, and he has cigarette burns in the top right corner in certain parts of the film to like give the illusion that you're watching something on projector.
Yeah, dude. Good for Fincher, man. Good for Fincher.
Yeah.
I gotta get that Mindhunter season 3 though. Seriously.
Yeah. I'm worried we just won't. I hope, I think it'll happen. I hope it happens. Although I remember him saying in like interviews that like his focus, like like he was going to make season 3 for like a really long time originally because his focus was squarely on Mank. And I think part of me does wonder that like the whole thing is I think he's been trying to get Mank made for like 10, 15 years.
So long. Yeah.
And Netflix sort of comes in like, you know, after he's built up all this goodwill with Mindhunter and he's just sort of like, will you let me make this? And then Netflix is kind of sure. And I think Netflix is kind of, there's this trend with Netflix sort of like giving all of these big name directors kind of like the funding for the passion projects that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. Like even like The Irishman, I think Scorsese tried to make that movie for like 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah.
And originally like he was going to do it when De Niro was younger and it didn't require like $200 to $300 million worth of de-aging technology. And then by the time it got to like 2015, 2016 and Lolo becomes a thing and he's like, hi, do you want to give me like $150 million to like make a movie with like actors that are like 90 years old and make them like 40? Most studios are like, no. And then Netflix was like, yes. And then even like, I think the cost of the movie ballooned to like almost, I think it was 250.
Over 200. Yeah. Holy shit.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And Mank itself, I think, was over $100 million.
No way. You think so?
Let me see. I gotta check. There's so much set dressing in that movie that had to have cost so much money.
Imagine if they shot on film.
Yeah.
It would have ballooned everything.
Oh, I guess it is a much smaller budget movie than I thought. It is 20. So only 20 to 30 million. But even then, for a movie like Mank, that's a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot of investment from a studio for sure. And got to give props to Netflix for giving these creators such freedom with these projects because they wouldn't have been made without it. Like Roma, like given the attention and the care, like props to Netflix. Like Okja, that's a thing that never would have been made if Netflix was not like throwing money at people. Like seriously. They are in so much debt, though. Netflix will always be in debt.
Yeah, it's interesting with like most streaming services. I think most streaming services, except for Amazon, because you know they're bankrolled by the Amazon Corporation, is like most like Netflix. I think has only turned a profit in like 1/4 of its entire existence. It's like all of these. Again, not to like make this a business podcast, but like a lot of these like internet startups, specifically streamers, and even like you know other companies like. Most of these companies maybe see like 1-2 quarters of profit or like even turnover because they're throwing so much money at content and technology. Like Netflix specifically, I think it was like I forget the article. I'll have to link it to you after this, but like they're throwing like almost like $400 million a year at just new content.
Definitely more
just
than
quantity. You know, in some cases, there's an argument to be made like quantity over quality. Some of the stuff that Netflix is putting out isn't necessarily the greatest, but when it hits, you know?
Maybe I should pitch my stuff to Netflix. Maybe they'll approve it because they're just throwing money.
They're throwing money at everyone, man. It's worth a shot.
Yeah, seriously. I wonder how they even approve this shit, dude. They just say, go do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's kind of off topic. But props to Netflix for making a shit ton of movies on the list this year and being the A1 like homie MVP for film in 2020. Like, seriously.
Jeez.
Okay, so wait, you just said Mank.
Yeah.
Okay. What number was that for you?
I think that was, let me look at I had it. Yeah, it's my number 3. Yeah, that was my number 3.
Okay. So my number 3 is Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Oh, excellent pick.
I only watched this movie yesterday, but I spent so much time thinking about it afterwards. So basically the premise is just, what's her name? Jessie Buckley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is it Jessie Buckley?
It is Jessie Buckley.
Okay, because I got confused with Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons. Okay.
Yeah.
Not confusing. But just them going to their parents' house. And this is not really a movie that you explain the premise of. Because it's nowhere near the advertising that I've seen. It's just such a crazy, odd, out there movie that plays with the thoughts of like suicide and relationships in a way that could not be perceived by anyone else besides Charlie Kaufman. I mean, this screenplay and the way he directs, he's such a good director. Like, what? It's absolutely incredible and so creative and full of possibility. Like, oh my God. People could interpret this movie in so many different ways. And it's weird because it's upon like a rewatch, like it plays so straight in a way. but there's so much thought put into every sound, every frame, every like piece of production design. Like Charlie Kaufman just really outdid himself with this movie, and I'll be thinking about it for like years to come.
Yeah.
Like this movie will just age like a fucking fine wine.
Yeah.
It's really incredible what he does with like just being inside of the mind of the said person in this movie ultimately.
Also, Jesse Plemons is just such a delight in everything I see him in. Like, he's another guy where like he's in just such a weird combination of things. Like, I think the last three things I remember Jesse Plemons from are this. So I'm thinking of anything directed by Charlie Kaufman. Vice, where he plays the weird, like he narrates Vice.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's absurd. He plays this like whole absurdist narrator character, and then El Camino. Those are the last three things I remember Jesse Plemons from, and the range with those roles is just, oh my god. Yeah,
he's definitely one of the best like character actors working today, and an absolute delight to be on the screen whenever. But this is probably his best performance. He shows the most range in this movie, and he brings his character to such crazy different places. And same with Jessie Buckley. Like, I'm not fully aware of this actress prior to this movie, but she knocks it out of the park and is absolutely incredible in such a curious, like, she doesn't even know where she is in this. Like, her character doesn't even know where she is, what she's doing throughout the whole entire movie. And she just nails the whole entire thing. And everything in this movie is so deliberate and particular. It's crazy. I don't know what you have to say about this movie.
So Jessie Buckley, I wasn't like super familiar with prior to seeing I'm Thinking of Anything either. But so I remember her mainly. She plays the fireman's wife in Chernobyl. If you watch Chernobyl,
I need to watch Chernobyl. It's on the list.
Chernobyls a completely different conversation. Absolutely killer. She's killer in that. And she's also in season 4 of Fargo, which is just she's been on a bit of a journey to like get here per se. And it's really cool to see her work with someone like Kaufman, because I think this is going to bring her career to new heights in the same way that I think it's going to bring Jesse Plemons' to new heights. I don't really want to, like, I feel bad not talking about this movie that much, but I don't want to say too much if the audience hasn't seen it, because it's just so bananas. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to give anything away, because that would be a disservice to people that haven't seen this movie.
Yeah, I feel like I low-key said too much, but who knows? Like, people can interpret this in different ways.
Exactly.
But well, what's your next movie?
So my number 2 actually.
Which we both said are number ones already. That's fine.
Yeah. It's okay. So my number 2, I guess this is the culmination, is a documentary film called Boy State.
Interesting choice.
Is one of my favorite documentaries I think I've ever seen. I think my favorite documentary of all time is still Food Inc. It's either Food Inc. or 13th, but Boy State is in that conversation for me, just because it's so the premise of Boy State, for those of you who don't know, is every year, I think it's the American Legion sponsors this organization, these events called Boy States, which is essentially like a mock government that a bunch of like really, academically accomplished young men sort of run, and as sort of like, like mock Congress, mock presidential election, or it's mock gubernatorial election. It's to mock a state government, which is hence why it's called Boy State. And so these two filmmakers, I forget, I should remember their names. But basically these two documentary filmmakers decided to, and I think it was the 2019 Boy State, decided to follow 3 separate candidates for governor, which is like the highest office in this mock government. So they follow these 3 different candidates for governor. One of which is his name is Steven Garza. He's a child of immigrants. He's a first generation college student at the University of Texas now. And the other, I forget the name of, because I was so invested in Steven's story. But essentially, you watch these kids that are essentially like, they're all running these campaigns and everything, and it gets so out of hand so quickly, because I mean, they're young adults, so you can't necessarily expect them to keep their cool all the time. And there's so many parallels to the current political conversation around the way elections and campaigns are run in this country, and like the undercutting and the backstabbing and everything, and seeing it among 17 to 18-year-old men, and then thinking about what you see in the news and thinking about what you hear about with like people that are over the age of 45. It's insane. Also, all of these all of these kids, like, again, they're all in our age range. All these kids are so incredibly accomplished and so well spoken at such a young age, and they come from such a diverse group of backgrounds that it's just really interesting to see them talk about. Again, it's not even like, some of it is conversations about American politics, but a lot of it is just sort of like how you act around other people. And yeah,
that's dope. I haven't seen the movie yet.
Yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't even like on my radar. I knew of it. I heard like the buzz from the film festival circuit, but I didn't really like go out of my way to say, oh, I want to see this movie. But now I really do want to see this movie because this seems honestly really interesting from the way that you were talking about it. I was adding it to my watch list when you started talking because
yet another just really, again, yet another history making movie. I think it is the most, I think a documentary has it's the highest amount for a documentary paid from Sundance. I think Apple paid, I think it was like $12 to $13 million along with partnered with it. Or no, so A24 produced it, I think, and then Apple acquired it, the exclusive distribution for it for like almost like over $10 million for a documentary, which is also unheard of. Again,
that is unheard of. Yeah.
Again, prior to the pandemic happening and everything, I think it would have gotten a theatrical release. Same way with Palm Springs. It was just a really big year for festivals in general. Just like, I mean, there's always money being thrown out at festivals, but this year was just kind of something else. Like, geez.
Yeah, dude. It's going to be interesting going forward to see like how the distribution model changes after Sundance this year, and if there's going to be a huge focus with indies within streaming the same way that it was this year. That's going to be super, super interesting to see. Yeah. But my number 2 movie is Pixar's Soul.
Oh.
So awesome. Basically it's this jazz pianist who dies on the brink of his big break. And this movie absolutely floored me. After watching this movie, I thought about it for a very long time, longer than I have for a movie in the past like 5 years, really, because just the way this movie wrestles with the ideas of life, purpose, and what we're actually meant to do here, and how we are to perceive the earth while we are living, is so deep and like philosophical and just like unlike anything Pixar's really made or anything I've really seen. Because rarely do you see a message like this portrayed in such a creative way. It's kind of like a la Don Hertzfeldt's like World of Tomorrow. It low-key feels like that in some ways. Yeah. But yeah, I was wrestling a lot with like the purpose aspect because I'm such like a driven dude, primarily because I want to be part of the film industry. I want to achieve this dream. I've never really thought of like kind of spoiler territory, but like what it means if we get there and it's not
what you expected.
That's a haunting reality. That's so fucking terrifying. This is not a kid's movie. This is not a kid's movie at all.
It's maybe the most existential thing I think I've seen Pixar make, aside from like Up, which is really
terrifying.
Like, I think Pixar, because for me, I don't know why I didn't put Soul in my top 10. I think it probably would have been on the lower side, just because I also think that I did have some issues with like probably like the last 20 minutes of the movie, because I think Pixar as a studio has changed so much in the past 10 to 20 years in the way that they're making movies and the way that Disney is utilizing them. But for me, Soul kind of represented a return to form for Pixar, just because like think I remember Onward, which was one of the Onward. I take that back when I said Fantasy Island was the last movie I saw in a theater. I think Onward was, because I remember seeing Onward and kind of thinking Pixar had kind of lost it a bit. So Onward was this sort of like fantasy comedy film that they made that kind of felt like a DreamWorks movie. And it didn't necessarily have like, it didn't have the same.
It just didn't have that oomph.
It didn't have the same like emotional heft that I think something like Soul has. Like the idea that it is an animated film that frankly is dealing with subjects that should not, like, you wouldn't necessarily be wanting to talk to your kids about. Like, you're not going to sit in the back of the car and like have a conversation with your kid about like, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? And like the existential dread of not necessarily being able to follow your dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, this is really not a movie for kids. And it's honestly a dangerous movie. And it's a weird way to describe that about like a Pixar animated movie.
Yeah.
It like that's the last 20 minutes are what kind of like floored me a little, because I was like, what are you trying to say to me? That's why I was wrestling with this movie for so long, because after this, like, what? That message is awful. And I was like,
Yeah.
then I sat on it a little bit. I was thinking about the whole entire thing, the way that everything really did have a purpose and the characters' arcs did feel so fulfilling. I was like, okay, you've made your argument in a pretty effective way.
Yeah.
And I have to respect that.
Yeah.
And it's just like really puts a lot into perspective for like people like us who are so driven, like there's more to life than our ambitions. But
Yeah.
obviously I'll still like keep on grinding when it comes to my ambitions. But if that shit doesn't come through,
Work
like,
out. Yeah.
I still got something. Like
Yeah.
this life has so much to offer. And that's kind of a beautiful message, not really one that I would tell my kids ever.
Yeah.
But interesting of like Disney to spend like $200 million creating a movie about not following your dreams, which is kind of the antithesis of like Disney in general. It's so like interesting just as a movie, and it's a miracle that it was made in the first place. Pete Docter is probably like Pixar's A1 best right
Their
now.
best export.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I literally can't imagine like if he didn't make Up or Inside Out, like them actually letting him make a movie this crazy and out. It's really not a kid's movie. Like, I could see like a kid enjoying like the second act and just being confused the rest of it, which is so weird.
Yeah.
Like this is not a kid's movie. Like the soul stairs, that's so like haunting, bro. Like what the fuck, dude?
Jesus.
I don't know. I wish I watched it with little kids to see how they would react, because they would laugh like probably 5 times. It's not like the funniest movie like either. It's just like a lot of thought for sure.
Yeah.
Wait, did we go over all our movies?
I think we have. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so no, it's been actually a pretty good movie year, in general.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with my list right now so far. But I still have a few ways to go. I still have to see One Night Man, Promising Young Woman, and like First Cow and Mangrove before like I make something certain. But no, I'm pretty happy with my list. And it's so crazy because our lists are so different. I remember we were talking about how our top 10 for the decade was like super similar. But our top 10 for the year is literally like, it's not night and day. We do have a few similarities, but like it's crazy to see like the differences.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different avenues to watch movies and like lanes just to view stuff. It's interesting. But do you have a list when it comes to music or?
I have, Oh, absolutely. Okay. I'd say
let's just go over that really quick.
Okay.
So let's just say our top 10s and just like talk about them afterwards.
Okay. So I'd say my top 10 in no particular order. So I have Mordecai by Khruangbin. I have Limbo by Mine. I have Misanthropocene by Grimes.
Fire.
Yeah, I have Man on the Moon 3 by Kid Cudi, which is a little bit of a late inclusion, but really just blew me away. I have Shore by Fleet Foxes, Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa, Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple, After Hours by The Weeknd, Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. And, even though this isn't in any particular order, I think my favorite of the year was probably Alfredo by Freddie Gibbs. And my honorable mention would probably go to Folklore and Evermore, like a double feature. And I've never really been a particularly big Taylor Swift fan, but it really just like kind of
moved me over.
Yeah, exactly. It converted me per se, not fully, but like it did something. It did something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously. Okay, so let me just say mine before like diving into that stuff. I just was writing them down. Like
I got you. Yeah.
Okay, so my top 10 is this is in order though.
Yeah, I got you.
10, Whole Lotta Red, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, Visions of Bodies Being Burned, Clipping, From King to a God, Conway the Machine, Eternal Atake, Lil Uzi Vert, Sawayama, Rina Sawayama, Song Machine Season 1, Strange Times, Gorillaz, How I'm Feeling Now, Charlie XCX, Ugly is Beautiful, Oliver Tree, and number 1, Run the Jewels 4, Run the Jewels.
I'd say the album lists are night and day. Run the Jewels 4 was definitely really close to making that 10 for me.
Oh, really? Yeah, I really love Run the Jewels 4 because I don't know, like when it was released, it was right in the midst of the Atlanta protests and like the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement, and it just hit in a crazy way. You know, like Walking in the Snow, where he just speaks from the perspective of Eric Gardner. Yeah, and just listening to that on the day it came out. Wow, dude, like Killer Mike, dude. My mind was going all over the place.
Yeah. I know they released it earlier than expected too. I think it wasn't expected for like another month, and they released it because of the oh my God. Sorry, I'm my apologies. They released it like earlier than expected as a result of the protests, and it hit immediately. I will say, I love Charlie XCX record as well. It didn't like quite make my top 10, but that was really fun. I'd say another honorable mention for me was 1,000 Gex in the Tree of Mysteries, specifically
So
for
fun.
that Charlie XCX, the Charlie XCX feature on, I think it's Ringtone is just killer. It melted me. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love that record. Actually, yeah, I got it right here. Like, what? Yeah, no, this record is bonkers, and like, I have it. I just bought it.
Oh
really.
my.
Yeah.
Killer.
Check this shit out. Like, the cover art is absolutely like out of this world and so flamboyant and just out there. But yeah, you have a pretty good list too. I did like Miss Anthropocene, like Fire, Future Nostalgia was one of my biggest surprises coming into this year. I didn't expect something that grandiose and just like fun, and like Dua Lipa, kind of the GOAT for that. Fetch the Bolt Cutters, obviously, like literally Fiona Apple like knocked it out of the park with that one. So intimate,
one of a kind.
Yeah, like the minimalist production is it's so alluring and enticing, the whole entire record. Limbo, Amine, props to you, man. Like that record is absolutely something else. It's right outside my top 10 for sure. Definitely my number 11. After I was also pretty incredible record to make my top 10 though. Alfredo also right out of my top 10. Like Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist really coming through with a record that is so fire. Like seriously.
Jesus Christ. I will say, I think like looking at my list again, I think the biggest surprise for me of the year was the Khruangbin record. I don't know how familiar you are with Khruangbin. They're a funk band out of Texas, and the whole thing is I'd never really heard their stuff before, and they popped up. I think one of my friends told me about the record, and I think it came out like midway through the year, and it's just this really interesting fusion of genre. They're like really.
What's the record called?
It's called Mordecai. And then Khruangbin is if you search Mordecai, it should come up. Yeah. But they have this really interesting fusion of just genre and sound from like different parts of the world, because the whole thing is like the band members, the band was initially formed because all these people met and bonded over their love of like Eastern music and like Afghani music, and the whole thing is like they take American funk music and sort of cross it with this Eastern sound, so like stuff from like music from Afghanistan, just music from the East that you just wouldn't typically hear in an American funk record.
That sounds super, super exciting.
Yeah.
I just started on I just heard it on my Spotify, so I'm gonna listen to it whenever. That sounds like a super interesting record. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Whole Lotta Red?
So my feeling, okay, I'm going to be really blunt. I feel like Cardi just dropped to drop. I understand that, this is something he's probably been working on for a really long time. And the song, I forget the name of the song with the Kanye feature actually goes really hard. I am more of a person where I think I'd probably like Cardi a hell of a lot more live, just because of the fact that his show.
This is definitely a mosh pit album. Yeah. Like the whole entire thing through and through.
Yeah, the way the music sounds is just something I'd probably want to hear live. Like, because the whole thing is like he sort of represents the idea that like trap music, like trap shows and trap music is like kind of like the punk of today, especially like if you're looking at that album cover for Die Lit. But it just didn't really do anything for me, because I'm already not like a huge I say this because I'm not like the biggest fan of his music already. I really like Die Lit, but it feels like he just kind of dropped to drop. Also, like, I don't know if you saw like the stuff that was happening with his his kid.
Yeah, dude, seriously.
Which was just absolutely bananas.
So embarrassing. And dude, take care of your kid, dude.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I do really like the record. I actually really love the record. I couldn't buy it on vinyl because it's sold out in the store, stupid Cardi. But yeah, I really respect the punk hip hop, not really hip hop, it's just like trap angle that he approached with this record, and it's just so diverse, and it just makes me feel something. Wow. It just makes me want to like throw shit out the window and just jump around. He does it so effortlessly. No one is really in this lane, and Cardi just like fills it with all he can in all his being. It is art in the purest form. Should be my number one. It's not. That was a joke. But also, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about Cardi and so interesting to me.
Yeah,
So alluring.
I was gonna say, so what were so you've asked me for my feelings on a whole lot, right? What were your feelings on Man on the Moon 3?
Man on the Moon 3, I think is pretty good. I think when I first listened to it, I kind of like overrated it in my head just because it's Cuddy's return, not only to like as a solo artist, but it is also really functions as a return to form if you take away Kid C's Ghost from his discography. I thought I really, really dug the second half, not necessarily the first half, the more trap influence aspect of that record. I do really like the record though. I really love the song with Phoebe Bridgers. That song's really good. I like Elsie's Baby Boy.
Yeah.
Like when Cuddy is being Cuddy, that's where I think the record really, really becomes something more than average. And Rockstar Nights, oh my God, that I don't even know
like it's maybe the first time I've listened to Trippie Redd on something and been like, okay, I kind of get this. I think my favorite songs are probably, I think Tequila Shots within about like 2 days became my most played song of the year on Spotify.
Wow,
I think I listened to it by about 20 or 30 times because even like the trap stuff is so uncharacteristic of him. It was such a surprising, like I had maybe the smallest feeling he might go in that direction, but it was just such a surprise, such a pleasant surprise for me. Also, the track with Stormzy, this track with Stormzy and Pop Smoke,
super unexpected.
Because number one, I think what this continues to show me is like, I love it when American artists just randomly throw British rappers on their albums because the British rappers just consistently like it's such a shock every single time you hear it. Like I think when More Life, which I'm not a particularly big fan of, but Giggs is featured pretty prominently across. Like it's just something you're not necessarily expecting, and then it just pops up and it's in your face, and it's just something that you don't. It's obviously like you might listen to like as Stormzy's become like a more global presence, like grime in British hip hop just isn't something that you're going to hear with American audiences that often. So like when a guy like Cuddy's like, all right, let's just throw Stormzy here, like it pops.
It pops smoke for sure.
Yeah.
Rip Pop Smoke, my guy.
Yeah.
Like seriously, another person whose talent only like scratched the surface, in my opinion. Super talented man. But yeah, Man on the Moon 3 is a really good record. Yeah. I'll give it that. It's outside my top 10, like probably in my top 20 for sure for the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just really excited for what Cuddy's doing next because clearly he's found his groove with concerning what he wants to do with everything.
Yeah.
But this has been good. Thank you for coming on. Like I'm glad that we got to talk about movies and music and within the context of the worst year.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've definitely lived. Man. So do you have anything to plug before we go? Like
I think I don't really have anything to plug at the moment. I would say I'm just like I'm in between like creative stuff right now. I would say if you are a student at Emerson College, look out for some really cool stuff coming from Sports Magazine. Also just a really great thing to check out there. I haven't necessarily put anything new up there recently, but Fettucine the zine is always just a really cool thing to check out. It's this sort of miscellaneous art zine started by a couple friends of mine, and I contribute on occasion, and it's just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily see like typically published in an arts magazine, and it's just consistently killer. So yeah, that's really about it.
So what's your handle?
So my handle on Instagram is Brendan M. Walker. On Twitter, you can find me at Brendan M. Walker. And you can also find me on Letterboxd at Brendan M. Walker, I think.
Oh. Yo, I should follow you on Letterboxd. I'm going to
absolutely
do that right after this. Send me your Letterboxd right after this.
Okay. I will. Word.
So that's a wrap on the PRiSM Podcast. I'm your host, Rodrigo Mariano. My socials are at DragonsFoe on Instagram and at PRiSM Official. Please follow that, of course. This is the outlet in which we do this stuff that we do. And thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.